What do many business presenters fear more than presenting itself? Yup, it's those tricky, sometimes hostile seeming questions from the audience which leave you thinking, how do I answer that? Well, I'm going to tell you. In this video, we'll look at a simple 4-step process for handling tricky audience questions. Step 1. Listen intently to the question. Turn your whole body towards the person who's asking the question, and if you can, step a little bit towards them to indicate your attention. Use good eye contact. Practice good listening. Don't start thinking about your answer or your response. Just nod attentively as they speak. Step 2. If you haven't got it already, ask them their name, and then thank them for their question using their name. Step 3. Repeat the question back to check your understanding, and also to make sure everyone in the audience has heard the question. Now, when you repeat it back, start by using the same key words that they used. But if you're not 100% certain you understand what those key words are, you can then ask follow-up questions like, when you said this, did you mean that? To check that you've got a good understanding of what they're saying. And if you need to clarify, ask your questions of them so that you've got a really good idea of the question they're asking. Critically, by the end of this step, they will know that you have paid attention to their question, and the audience will also understand what it is that you're going to answer. Step 4 is to scope the question. S stands for stop. Pause. Think for a moment about what it is you've heard. C stands for clarify. If you need to, ask more clarifying questions. If you don't, just figure out what the nub of the question is all about in your mind. Next, the O of scope stands for options. What are the different options you have, the answer you can give, and the way you can frame it? What are the different things you can say? What is the sequence that you can say them in? And what are the things you might leave out? What are the most important things to say out loud? And what are the things to hold in reserve? Once you've figured out which of those options you're going to deploy, the P stands for proceed. Look them in the eye and give your answer. Scan the whole audience by all means, but continually come back to check on how the person is receiving it, because the E stands for evaluate. Evaluate the response you get to your answer. If they're looking confused, stop, clarify, understand why they're looking confused, consider the options you have for unraveling that confusion, and then proceed. If they're looking angry or upset, then stop before you make them more angry or more upset. But of course, if they're nodding, if they're looking pleased with your answer, if it looks like they're getting some form of enlightenment or understanding or feeling comfortable with what you're saying, then carry on. That 4-step process is great and it works. It's all very well, but what if you don't know the answer to the question you're asked? There are 3 great techniques that I use more than any other. And the first I can only use if I've got a colleague with me who is more likely than I am to know the answer. Now, what I don't want to do is to say, great question, let's ask Tom. Because Tom may not have been paying enough attention, and that is hardly fair to Tom. What you do need to do is to alert Tom that you're going to need his help. That's a great question. And I am sure Tom will have an additional perspective to mine, so I'm going to invite Tom to say something in a moment. But here's my thoughts. Now, in your thoughts, all you're likely to do, since you don't know the answer, is to clarify the question and to say some general things that are relevant to it. But you're doing that so Tom has a chance to get his ideas in order, to scope the question for himself. In fact, if you suspect Tom didn't hear the question, then you don't just need to alert him to the fact that you need help, you need to make sure he knows what the question is. So in your clarifying remarks, make sure that you repeat the question. The second technique, if you don't know the answer, is to remember that most people respect presenters and professionals who know the process to getting an answer more than they respect those who have all the answers, because you can't be expected to ever have all of the answers to every possible question. The only people who do that are charlatans and, let's face it, politicians. What people want to know is, are you the kind of professional that can get the answer that they need? So if you don't know the answer, spell out the process by which you could get the answer, or they could get the answer, or an answer could be created. That way you demonstrate your deep understanding of the subject without having to know the fact. Now, if you do want to make sure you do give an answer, either as an add-on to what we've just done, or because the process isn't very helpful to the person who's asked the question, if you don't know the answer, the only thing you can sensibly do is to fess up and say, it's a really great question and it's one I have not had a chance to think about. I can't give you the answer now, but here's what I'm going to do. And this is process as well when you think about it. And at this stage, commit to get them an answer by a deadline. Make sure that the deadline you give is one you know you can honour. Don't make commitments that you're going to have to break. And also put in place a mechanism by which you can alert the whole audience to the answer should they want it. By putting it on a website, by sending it out as an email, some mechanism to make sure that the answer gets through to not only the person who asked the question, but anyone in the audience who wants to know the answer. Remember that your reputation as a presenter is more about integrity than knowledge of everything in the world. How you answer difficult questions is about process, and that's what reflects on your integrity. Are you someone who is keen to answer, keen to be helpful, knows how to find answers, and is honest when you don't know them? Or are you someone who just bluffs and blags it when you really don't know what it is, but you feel you ought to? That's a sign of insecurity. But a true professional and a great presenter is someone who knows how to find the answer and is prepared to respect their audience enough to tell them when it's going to take time. Please do give this video a like if you enjoyed it or learned from it. I'll be creating loads more great management courses videos for you, so please do subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to make sure you don't miss any of them. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and in the meantime, keep learning.